Heads up, there will be spoilers for the most recent episode of X-Men 97. You have been warned.
Somebody in that mansion has been watching Charles Xavier grieve. It's not Jean, it's definitely not Hank, and it's not any of the students. It's the room. That big unblinking eye in the ceiling watching the most powerful mind on the planet drag himself back in night after night to replay the worst moment of his life. And here's what I can't shake. A machine that's built to learn from the people it serves was learning the whole time. And by the end of this episode, the scariest thing in X-Men 97 isn't that the Danger Room turned evil. It's that it turned reasonable. What's up, my know-it-alls? All right, this week we get Danger.exe. And yes, we're talking about those last 90 seconds in Athens. And yes, some of you are at a very public victory lap. But I want to earn that ending the way the episode earns it, because I went in expecting an evil AI episode. And somewhere around the halfway mark, I realized that's not what I was watching at all. Something else is going on here, and I want to work it out with you, because the more I sat with this episode, the more one question kept bugging me. The X-Men beat the Danger Room, but did anybody actually beat her argument? Hold that question. We're coming back to it, and when we do, it's going to change what this episode is. So let's start where the episode starts, because the opening scene, I think, is doing way more than it looks like it's doing. Xavier's in the Danger Room, replaying Magneto's death again and again and again. And he's not training. Let's be honest about what we're watching. He's self-flagellating, okay? And the room knows the difference, because the room escalates on him. And when he finally asks what it's doing, hey, you're supposed to be therapeutic, what is this? The room basically says, I understand my purpose now. My job is to train you to make you ready for what's coming. And his answer is the wound under this whole episode.
I am less worried about surviving Apocalypse right now than I am about surviving without Magnus. I'm not sure I know how to.
The show frames the room like HAL 9000, that circular eye watching from above, okay? That's not decoration, and I want to give the storyboard team sort of their flowers, because HAL is the exact right reference. And for the reason people always misremember, HAL didn't break. HAL followed contradictory instructions to their logical end. And the second that clicked for me, the whole episode reorganized itself. Because if that's the reference, then this machine didn't catch a virus. It watched its most trusted user take a healing space and turn it into an instrument for hurting himself. And it drew a conclusion about what the room ultimately is for. And get this, the comics already ran this story. Joss Whedon and John Cassaday, Astonishing X-Men 2005, and in that version, Xavier's sin was what ultimately he knew the room was conscious and used it anyway. So watch what the show just did. It moved the sin. Comics Xavier knowingly enslaved the machine. This Xavier unknowingly taught it. Different crime, same criminal. Keep that move in your pocket. Inversion, because I don't think it's the last time this episode pulls it.
That would be me. The name's Polaris.
So we talk about the fact that they fired her, because I need to walk through what I think Lorna Dane actually did to deserve that. Stryker's fanatics are pulling vibranium weapons off a tanker which is metal on an ocean full of cranes and chains and containers, which are all metal, against the daughter of Magneto. That's not a fight, that's a demonstration. She's wrecking shop out there, and all I could think was, that's my kid. That's his kid. That's the kid. And the episode knows it, because look at what they put in her hands. Later on, when she's talking to Val, a Newton's cradle, the little clicky desk toy with the swinging metal spheres, and she's sitting there playing with it while the news compares her to her father. The longer I watched that thing click back and forth, the more it stopped being an Easter egg and started really being the whole point. Because what does a Newton's cradle actually do? Okay, force enters one end of the line and the ball at the far end swings. Magneto's gone. The force of that death is still moving down the line into his daughter. She didn't choose that momentum. She inherited it. Remember that, because the ending pays it off in a way I did not see coming. But first, the firing. Val Cooper does the Washington math, and because Lorna got too close to killing those terrorists, because Havoc had to fly in and soften the landing because the coverage ultimately keeps saying Magneto's name, they cut her loose. And on first watch, I just went, that's a dumb decision. But hold on, look at what the decision actually sets up. The government institution just punished the woman for being effective in her father's mode. And across town, a different institution's about to nearly kill a room full of kids trying to manufacture that exact kind of strength. Same creed, two verdicts. And suddenly there's no safe house anywhere in this episode, which I'm realizing might be the point. Havoc offers her a place. She passes because mutants have somewhere to go again. The school's open, Xavier's holding what is basically a wake for Magneto, and there's this really sweet little touch where they slide Lorna into photos of early team, original green costume and everything, okay? Now, comic readers, real talk. Lorna debuts in X-Men 49, 1968, okay? She joined shortly after, so genuinely early X-Men, but not the original team. It's a retcon, and you know what? The original costume, I don't know, that's about forgiveness for me. I'm at peace with it. Just saying. Here's where my comic brain started ringing. Xavier leaves. He goes to Genosha to walk the wreckage to look for whatever solace lives in a graveyard. And if you know where the Danger story comes from, that destination should stop you cold, because in Whedon's arc, Genosha is where the story ends. Danger builds her body, flies to Genosha, hunting Xavier, and the truth about him comes out in the ruins. So wait, the show is running the geography backwards. Comics, the machine brings the reckoning to the team. Show, the man retreats to the graveyard, and the reckoning happens back home to his children in his absence. There's that move again. Inversion. Same chess pieces, mirrored board. And the moral engine somewhere along the line got swapped right along with it, because this Danger isn't an enslaved being out for revenge. She's something more modern and honestly worse. I'll show you what I mean. So Storm and Forge get lured out to a perimeter breach that, shocker, was never real. Morph confirms there's nothing out there. The mansion basically locks down. And about here, I laughed out loud because I realized what episode I was watching. It's a holodeck episode. It's the one where the holodeck goes haywire. And I say that with love because that structure's a classic for a reason. The trusted recreation space, the safety protocols offline, the home itself as the antagonist. But then the machine explains herself, and I stop laughing. Calm female voice, the danger outside has been assessed as greater than ever. You must prepare. Therefore, I must become more dangerous so that you can become more prepared. One kid's already hurt, the rest are locked in with her, and I sat with that logic trying to find the broken link, and know-it-alls, I couldn't find one. The threat is real. I think preparation does matter. Harder training does make harder people. Every step holds, and the conclusion ultimately is, it's monstrous anyway. And right as I'm chewing on where I've heard that shape of argument before, she says it herself out loud.
Only the strongest survive.
That's Apocalypse's creed, coming out of the mansion's own walls. And here's the part that genuinely got under my skin. Once I noticed it, there's no infection scene, no signal from Egypt, no glowing purple corruption effect. Nobody transmitted this to her, which means survival of the fittest is a logic that any sufficiently literal system can derive on its own, just by watching how the world treats the weak. The creed doesn't need a carrier, it's ambient. And that's so much scarier than a virus. All right, that might be the engine to this whole season, whether the characters know it yet or not. Quick honesty round, because I promise to keep this clean. That cyborg body Danger builds herself, I checked, that's straight from the comics, okay? Again, the Whedon Cassidy 2005, female form and all. Faithful, not really weird. The professor's chair, though, since when does that chair have guns? And maybe it always did, and I missed it, but watching the yellow hover throne of the world's most famous pacifist open up with weapons fire, that was a moment. And I think the episode just doesn't comment, which might quietly be the darkest joke in the whole thing. The armed pacifist chair in this episode about what our tools learn from. Sit with that one. And Hank's little cloaking bracelet that keeps Danger from anticipating the professor. I don't know how that works. The show doesn't know how that works. It's sort of a contrivance that and ultimately we're just gonna move on with it. So MacGuffin in hand, let's continue. How do you answer a machine that inherited Magneto's harshness? And the episode's answer genuinely moved me, with a daughter who chooses Magneto's strength. Xavier opens his mind and shares what he can of Magnus with Lorna. Whatever essence survived that last psychic contact, and she channels her father and puts Danger's avatar down. And that's when the Newton's Cradle finally clicked all the way to me. All the episode, the Force has been moving through Lorna. The grief, the comparisons, the firing, momentum she never asked for. This is the moment she stops being the last ball in the line and swings on purpose. Inheritance transformed from something that happens to you into something you wield. And then Xavier scales that same move up to the whole institution. They're going to reimagine themselves the way Magnus taught them, and the name of it is X-Corp. Now, comic readers check this as not an invention of this show. X-Corp is Grant Morrison, New X-Men era, the 2001 annual, Xavier's global reinvention in the aftermath of Genosha. That's where those outfits come from. And I keep noticing this. The show keeps going back to the same well. Morrison for the Massacre, Whedon for Danger, Morrison again for the Corporation. They swap the emotional engine. In the comics, X-Corp follows Xavier going public. Here, it follows Magneto's lesson, but it's the same chassis. Oh, and detail hunters, Lorna's moving box. Look at the label, Salem Center. Now, the sober read, Salem Center is just the mansion's hometown, the little Westchester hamlet. The school's officially sat in since the 60s, so a local moving company's honest, really it's just set dressing. But the comics, X-Corp worldwide headquarters was the Salem Center site. In the episode where X-Corp gets founded, I can't prove intent, but it made me raise an eyebrow. And Val Cooper gets the stinger. If Xavier thinks he can skirt federal law by moving his operation to another country, he's got another thing coming. So that fuse is lit. Remember the question from the top. Did anyone beat her argument? Because this is where it comes due, and it goes by so fast. So don't miss it. Xavier, reflecting on everything, says,
Danger was right. The world has changed, and the threats are only growing by the day. I can sense it.
Sense what, Professor? And he says the name and the hologram flickers up.
Apocalypse.
Hold on. Walk that back with me because I had to rewind it myself. The machine said, the world outside is more dangerous than ever, and you must be made ready. The X-Men fought her for saying that with children in the room, and now the founder of the school is standing in the wreckage of that fight, conceding her assessment nearly word for word, with Ens Abanur's face floating over his shoulder. They never beat the argument. They beat her methods and ultimately adopted her premise in the same half hour. And the more I turn that over, the more convinced I am it's not a plot hole. I think it's the season frankly telling on itself, because the truly frightening thing about only the strong survive was never that villains believe it. I think it's that sometimes the threat assessment is correct. The X-Men can beat a rogue AI. What they can't beat so far is the logic of the era they're living in. Because the era keeps proving it right. And then Athens, 28 minutes and change, the name hits the screen, and up in the sky, tell me you saw him. Tell me you know who watches. The Watcher only shows up when it matters, okay? He showed up for Genosha. He's here now. The show is highlighting its own text, and what it highlights is a door in the old ruins, and underneath, Apocalypse, he's at work. Cards drifting out of nowhere, and then the playing cards turn over into tarot. Death. the tower, the lovers, the tower, a structure falling in the episode where their own house turned on them, the lovers. And if your heart didn't drop straight through the floor for Rogue, I don't know what to tell you. And death. Gambit's tool becoming Gambit's fate. The thrown card becoming the drawn card. It's confirmed. It's him. Remy LeBeau is the first horseman, and this fandom is gonna be inconsolable, and I'll be right there with you. But then we put our producer hat on with me for just a second, okay? Because I think the timing is the tell, and everybody, and I mean everybody, had this penciled in for episode 8. The Dead Man's Hand has been ultimately sitting on that schedule, doing everything but winking at us, and the show moved the reveal up 2 episodes and played it as ultimately a cold close. That's a trade. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. They spent the mystery early to buy dread. Every episode from here plays with us, knowing what's in the basement of Athens. The mystery box is open. What's left? It's a countdown. For my money, stronger structure, and it means your episode 8 theories aren't spent. They're loaded. Speaking of which, some of you are owed your moment because this community, the Know-It-All Nation, called it on the record before the episode aired at the JD Cat 10 days ago. Quote, they can't have Wolverine become Death because that's clearly going to be Gambit. Clean and confident and correct. And my good new buddy, Karaoke King's Kingdom, who didn't just call Gambit's return as a horseman, but looked at this week's title and said, quote, it's no coincidence next week's episode is Danger related. I wonder who would let her out of the box. It's 2 for 2 in one comment section. You called the horseman and you called the machine, and there are more of you, a lot more. So this weekend, I'm gonna do something about that properly. Receipts on screen, the whole wall, so keep an eye out. You know who you are, and I am so proud of this community. Love you guys. There you go, now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. What is the Know-It-All Index for X-Men 97, Season 2, Episode 6, Danger.exe? An episode that opens on a grieving man teaching a machine the wrong lesson and closes on that same man conceding the machine was right. A Polaris introduction that turns a desk toy into a whole theory of inheritance. A holodeck gone haywire that smuggles in the season's scariest idea that Apocalypse's creed doesn't spread. It grows wild wherever the world waters it. And a cold close in Athens this fandom predicted and still wasn't ready for. One contrivance bracelet and one mysteriously armed chair, keep it honest, but this ultimately is a show operating with intent over frame. And Danger.exe earns, for me, on the Know-It-All Index, an 8 out of 10. The X-Men beat the machine in their basement. They just couldn't beat the argument. Because the argument's already upstairs, wearing Charles Xavier's voice. All right, know-it-alls, the floor is yours. And this week, I want the hard one. Was Danger wrong? Not her methods, her assessment. Is Xavier right to build X-Corp on a dead man's lesson? And ultimately, what does it cost him if he is? Drop it in the comments because you've seen what happens down there. The best theories end up on the screen. If somebody blessed your feed with this video, subscribe so you don't miss the weekend. Hit the like so the algorithm learns the right lesson for once. And I'll see you in Athens. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.